Hi, Si here for MusicRadar. This is Superbooth 2025. This is Si, this is Matt.
Right.
We're in the bungalow area.
We're just three lads, hanging out in the woods with a load of insects.
Loads of insects, covered in bugs. And we're talking about our sort of highlights of the show, aren't we?
Yeah, so we've been at Superbooth for what, 2 days now. It's the Friday. We're doing this video because we were like, we want to talk about all of our favourite things.
Yeah.
We've had a bit of a problem in that, is that Superbooth, like, so if you don't know about Superbooth, it's a big music tech conference in Berlin, kind of like the sort of trade show for Berlin techno almost, but like, it's become the big place where music technology companies, particularly small boutique people, release their new products. And we've had the problem over the last few days is that there's so much stuff being announced here, like really so much. So we've kind of had to narrow things down a bit and just pick a few highlights. We are covering a load more stuff though, so like if you're interested, we will drop a link to our live blog on MusicRadar below this, where we've got more coverage. We've been getting hands-on with more stuff. We'll post some more lengthy demos in the week. But for now, we wanted to talk about our few favourite things from the show.
Of our favourite things.
And actually, before we start talking about favourite things, I wanted to mention something, which is the interesting sort of kind of unmentioned, semi-mentioned thing at Superbooth this year, which has been tariffs. So obviously there is all, know what's going on in the world, like absolutely nuts, crazy, stupid stuff to do with tariffs and things and global economy. And it's kind of been a theme that isn't directly addressed by a lot of people, but like I've found almost every company I've spoken to, when you're like, hey, when's this coming out? What's it going to be priced? There's this kind of slight bit of like, hey, it's probably going to be this, but like,
no one knows.
It's a bit of an unknown. So like, so it's causing a bit of uncertainty. So that's kind of like a caveat that we'll put like under everything where we're saying like when things are going to be out and stuff
how
like
much
that.
they're going to be, crucially.
Yeah, but like, so let me start with some favourite things.
Okay, you first, and then we'll go through the group.
First, I want to start talking about Frap Tools, who we're literally perched up behind their bungalow. You can't see it; it's just our shop. Frap Tools is a Italian brand who have made a name for themselves over like recent years with like their modules, but they're kind of stepping up this year with something called Magnolia, which is their first polysynth, and it's like a big step up. It's an 8-voice analog polysynth.
Yeah.
So they brought it here in kind of like pre-production, sort of late prototype stage, so it's not quite on the market yet. But they've got a kind of pretty much working version that we had to play with, and this thing sounds really good to me.
Yeah.
So the emphasis on it, so it's building on like some things that they've had in their past modules, which bring in some like West Coast and East Coast synthesis ideas. So the main thing about it is got this kind of through zero FM, which is kind of like quite a musical way of doing FM compared to how it normally works in analog synths.
Yes.
So you've got two oscillators. One where you've got this kind of West Coasty wave folding, flip sync FM stuff. One which is more kind of East Coast with like pulse width modulation.
Yeah.
Two filters that you can FM filters and things. But it's got like a poly aftertouch keyboard and a really simple system of like routing modulation. Like in the demos they gave us, they were doing some cool things like routing like key tracking, pan position, routing kind of aftertouch, this poly aftertouch to like FM depth and things. And so sonically, like from first impressions, it sounds like it can do like really nice metallic-y FM stuff, but like also rich classic poly sounds.
Yeah, it gets smooth.
But it's bitimbral, and it's got some nice ways of working with those like the two layers, so you can have them kind of layered up, split. You can morph between them. And I think from the demos, it sounded like it really came to life when you have like these kind of those classic rich East Coast analog poly sounds with like a bit of like metallic gritty FM on top.
Best of both worlds.
So like I think when someone was demoing it, they described it as like playing around with digital sounds in the analog realm, which is quite a nice way, I think, to describe it. But so that's I think they're hoping to have it on the market by the end of this year. I don't think that we've heard a price yet.
We haven't.
No, I mean it's going to be. It already looks really nice and it's really nicely built. So it's going to be a premium price polysynth. It reminds me quite a lot of like. So we also perched up behind Udio here, who are a brand we love. But it reminds me quite a lot of Udio's synths, which again are kind of like premium price but really great quality and innovative.
Yeah.
I'd say there's definitely a sonic distinction between the two and like the way they work. So I don't think it's kind of stepping on each other's territory. But
no.
I would say it's in that ballpark in terms of like sound and design level.
Did you notice how like when we get the demo done, which will have a little bit of that flavour in this, but it goes from like really sort of smooth, gentle to
Yeah.
crazy, real quick. I quite like how there's a good
Yeah.
sort of jump between.
And we're always fans of that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
They were making a point as well that it doesn't have to be super complex. You don't have to get too deep in the operators and
yeah,
and the sound design to get nice
seemed
sounds.
quite
out of it.
hands-on, which is nice.
Yeah.
Talking of kind of things going weird-ish, another thing worth mentioning definitely is so Korg Berlin.
Yep.
We're in Berlin, obviously, for the show. Korg Berlin are basically an offshoot of Korg, the big, massive synth titans. They've got Korg Berlin, which is this kind of Berlin-based office, headed up by Tatsuzo Tats, who were the designers behind the Volca range, which are obviously brilliant. He's a kind of really well-respected designer, and he's heading up the small team. And they've actually been at Superbooth for kind of like the last 2 or 3 years, showing off early prototypes of their kind of
Phase 8.
what they call acoustic synthesis. And they've now got a proper product, Phase 8, which is going to come out early next year. So again, acoustic synthesis, basically that means that you're using these actual kind of like real objects as resonators. So there's kind of like metal objects that are used as resonators, and then you can kind of manipulate those using envelopes and wave folding and kind of modulation and things like that. And it's a really, as you would expect from them, kind of really innovative and cool, unique design. When I'll be honest, so when we had a demo the other day, and you'll see it in this video, when it first started, I kind of felt like the sound almost is a little bit like, I was like, oh, is that it? It kind of sounds a bit like almost one-dimensional, kind of two-dimensional flat thing. But then as you start working with those envelopes, particularly, so it's got built-in sequencer, so it kind of does between percussive and melodic stuff. And as you start playing with like the envelopes that change the rhythms a bit and the velocity and things like that, it really started to come to life. And
It
like
sort of starts to get some real big resonance sort of tones out of it as well.
and then you can, because you've got these physical resonators, you can kind of manipulate them with your hands, like you can mute them, put things on
screws
top.
on top, right? Like
Yeah,
a
it's
prepared
almost
piano or
it's
something.
almost like but like you said, prepared piano kind of style thing of like muting certain notes, which was doing really cool things. And as they were playing, it's like you kind of get these shifting rhythms, and like I was in my head, I was like, you can just imagine this with like a really nice like modular arp line on top, or some like intricate percussion like that would
fits in well.
work into sort of like your kind of floating point staccato dozzy style, cool rhythmic stuff. So like that's another one we're looking forward to getting our hands on. As I said, it's going to be out start of 2026, Q1 I think they said they're hoping for. They don't have a price yet, but what they did say to us is that they're aiming for under £1,000, €1,000 mark. So, but they can't commit to anything, so don't hold anyone to that.
Yeah.
Moog.
Oh yeah.
So Moog.
Big news. Yeah.
Moog are here. Obviously, Moog were the big brands in the synth world. They've got Messenger. So Messenger is like the first mono synth they brought out in a while, kind of fitting into the realm that like the Sub 37 and stuff.
Subsequent 25 was discontinued recently, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of slots right into that.
So it's kind of
price
fitting into
bracket
that
and
range.
Yeah.
But it's a bit different in its kind of look and feel.
Way different.
Yeah. So
a lot of people have sort of mentioned if it sort of almost feels like it's very of the In Music family.
yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. When I first got my hands on it, like I was surprised at how kind of small and lightweight it is, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
No,
I
it's
don't
got
think.
Yeah.
it's a metal chassis.
When we
isn't
spoke
it?
to them,
Yeah.
making a big deal, they wanted it to be accessible, right? I think that's a big
Yeah, and it does feel
kind of focal point for them.
like that. It does some interesting things in terms of like you can kind of cross modulate things, can't you? And there's like
Wave folders.
yeah,
on it,
wave
yeah,
folds and things,
yeah.
which is definitely interesting in like Moog territory, and it does have that sound. I think like that kind of Moog, what you expect from like the oscillators and the ladder filters and things. I think personally I probably need a bit more time with it to be sold on it completely. Like I was playing around with it on the show floor. I don't know what you guys thought. Like,
Well, Lisa Berdonna was doing a performance when we walked past. We were in the room for a bit, and there's some great stuff coming out of.
yeah, it is a classic one of those things of when you play with it and you're like, oh, this seems quite cool, and then you see someone who's a lot more talented than you are
Exactly,
playing, and you're like, okay, it's the problem.
frequent experience.
Yeah.
But,
So, yeah, I think it'll be a grower. I think like you say, I think we'll need to get our hands on it a little bit to help.
I think maybe some people expected a little bit more from them. I mean, considering how many analog monosynths they've got in there for a
in their
catalogue.
arsenal.
But I guess they do one thing pretty well. Why not keep doing
and it's
that?
priced at like $899, which is a decent price. There's a lot of competition.
That's kind of mid-level, kind of, because we've got the sort of the lower end stuff with their sort of semi-modulars, and then you've got like, the Muse and the Matriarch and all that lot. I think it's quite.
It's probably the cheapest way to get the Moog sound without venturing into that semi-modular territory. Or
So it's I think it's quietly impressed by that. I'd say we'll be giving a full review at some point soon.
It's one of the biggest releases here, isn't it? Because of the name, and it's good. It's one of, like you say, there's so many good releases here.
Yeah.
It's one of the
And it almost kind of
ones.
because there's so many innovative things, you almost feel like it's like
the standard goes up a bit.
Yeah.
couple more things I wanted to talk about. One thing I absolutely really loved was HexDrums, which is from Erica Synths. So HexDrums is like, it's based on some designs from Hex Inverter, who are a Canadian company. I'm right, Canadian, I think.
I think so.
Pretty sure. Canadian company who kind of ceased operation a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And they, and so Erica Synths have taken on some of their technology and put it into this new analog drum machine, which is called HexDrums, which just sounds really nice. And I, from having a little demo of that, was really impressed by it.
Right.
So Erica Synths brand, where they were those brands, they're kind of known for doing like kind of a lot of techno-y type things. They've got their techno systems, their modular things. And as a drum machine like HexDrums, it was just one of those things where like you start programming a little beat and tweaking things, it just sounds like almost like a finished techno track in one box. Like when they were doing some demos for us, they had it hooked up to their Echo Locator, their new delay thing.
Delay,
like I think with a couple of things coming out to that, and it's like you feel like you could almost do a full techno set out of just those couple of things. But yeah, the design of it is like it's got those lovely clicky sequencer buttons,
keyboard style, mechanical
which
keyboard.
are really nice to. I just love punching in patterns with those. Loads of hands-on control, sounds absolutely great. So that really impressed me.
There's no price on that at the moment.
Yeah, we don't know a price. No. It's not going to be cheap. Like knowing what their things are normally priced,
high end,
I would say high end. Somewhere between $1 and $2 grand. I would have probably imagined, but I might be wrong. But that's kind of speculation.
Over $1,000, we'd say.
Yeah, over $1,000. Like we might be pleasantly surprised by that, but again, it sounds excellent, and I think there's it's the sort of thing that actually you would buy, and for the right kind of producer, you would buy, and that would just probably be a massive part of your sound.
Yeah, centerpiece drum stuff.
So fair play, absolutely fair enough. the last thing that I wanted to talk about, and then we'll move on to some things for you guys.
Yeah.
Bento, which is from 1010 Music.
Oh yeah.
So 1010 Music, yeah. I almost forgot that. Then I was like, what am I going to talk about? 1010 Music from LA, American company, and you might know them from their little Nanobox things, which we've reviewed in the past.
Yeah.
Nanobox, where they're like really super compact little digital synths that do like granular stuff and then like sample drum machines and things.
Yeah, and they got the black box, the blue box.
Yeah, so Bento is
Mm-hmm.
like bigger than those. It's a bit more substantial. It's a sample-based kind of workstation groove box thing. You've got 8 tracks. It can kind of play with samples as, like you can play with loops, you can sequence one-shots. It's also got lemon drops, which is where their other little thing. It's got that granular engine, so you've got kind of synthy textural stuff in there. Hardware, it's got like it's got a touch screen on it, it's got some pads.
It's quite a big screen as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Like, I'll tell you what it reminded me of a lot. Basically, it reminded me a lot of Tracker from Polyend. So Tracker in that kind of sample-based, largely sample-based groove box thing where you can kind of almost door-in-a-box level, but it kind of reminded me of Tracker, but designed for people who were put off by the whole Tracker side of it, like that kind of retro thing, because it's a lot more conventional. Yeah, you've got like piano rolls, sequences and things. Yeah, I would need more time with it to decide whether I think like the touchscreen would get annoying for like sequencing onto the piano
My only
roll.
gripe with it was having the knobs so close up top, right above the touchscreen, because if you're tweaking levels and stuff, your arm's going directly over your mixer, right?
Yeah, it's difficult to know without us kind of properly spending time with it how much that would get on our nerves. But I think as a bit of kit, it's really interesting. It's worth noting from talking to them, there is some things coming in it in terms of like song modes and clips and things like that. And also in terms of like processing external audio, which is yet to be implemented, even though it's on the market. But like it sounds like that will be out.
It's got legs.
Soon. Yeah, and it's got loads of nice I/O, so it's designed to be like the hub of your setup, and I think it's pretty cool for that. So,
do you know the price?
I think it's around $8.99. I think so. Well priced, competitive,
and available sort of now.
Available to order now. But like I said, there's some firmware things coming. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
well,
so
we can't wait to get that one in.
So those are probably my highlights of the show.
There's a few.
Yeah,
that's tons. That could have filled one video.
And that is basically
and there's
already,
more.
I think you could fill an hour, really.
Yeah. Matt,
stay tuned. We've got more.
Do you want to jump in, Matt? Because you've been checking out some stuff on the more, I guess, kind of controllery side. And things.
For me, it's 2 controllers and a drum machine, and the 2 controllers are at like opposite ends of the price and capability spectrum.
Yeah,
really. So on one end, you've got Novation's Launch Control. It's like the 3rd version of Launch Control XL, which was launched originally in 2014, I think. As a kind of Ableton Live DAW controller. Then I think updated in 2017, mostly like a cosmetic refresh, and kind of hasn't been given much love since then.
Yeah, but I've always liked those because like
there's now, isn't it?
The live controller world is like there's a lot of creative pad things. Like even stuff like Push doesn't really like you can do mixing things, but there's not that much stuff that engages with like that side of live. Well. So it's nice to see that updated.
Yeah, and the 3rd version.
Go on.
3rd version it's completely new hardware, new aesthetic. You've got an OLED screen, which is kind of a must-have, I think, like these days. I mean, so you can reference your parameter values. You've got LEDs for each knob now, which aren't rings around the knob, which I would have liked to see, but they are just sort of little dots that will change in brightness with reference to the parameter value. It's got a slick black new look, which kind of fits with the launch key range, which has recently been updated. And I think they're angling it more towards kind of users of all DAWs now, right? And it's not exclusively an Ableton controller.
Yeah, because they've done that with some of like their other ones, haven't they? Kind of broadened it out, which is quite nice. So
is it CV control or is it just MIDI?
No CV, but the previous one didn't have MIDI, so now it's got MIDI. So now you can use it to control a hardware setup.
Yeah, great.
So it's really transitioned from being kind of quite a niche thing for Ableton users to being kind of more of an all-purpose controller.
Yeah.
And it's still under £200. I think it's 199, 189. So
so well priced.
It's pretty decent.
Popular, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the other controller then?
That is from, I believe, a Berlin-based company called Neuzeit Instruments.
Oh yeah.
Who are known for kind of more experimentally inclined Eurorack modules up until now. This is their first product outside of that sphere.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a master MIDI CV control center for your live performance.
Okay. What's it called?
Drop.
The Drop, yeah.
To mention that part. The Drop or just Drop?
Just Drop.
Just drop, not The Drop.
Yeah.
I keep saying The Drop.
And the key to the concept behind it is kind of in that name. It's sort of designed for creating impactful build-ups, transitions, and drops between multiple parts of a song.
Yeah.
So you can kind of dial in loads of parameter values, save that as a snapshot, save tons of those. I think it's 20 banks of 20 snapshots. and then you can pre-schedule them to drop after a certain number of bars. So you can schedule that, go crazy on the effects, create, twist all the knobs you want, and you won't have to obviously manually jump back in.
Oh, nice. So it'd be kind of great for live performance if you want to do those sort of like really, really mangling something and get back to where you were. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Nice.
So if you're someone that likes to design kind of like complex arrangements and transitions and build-ups and structures in your songs, and you don't want to use a laptop and have everything pre-arranged in a way that can maybe be a bit stale, it could be the controller for you.
Okay. What's the price of it?
I believe he said $899. I think, which was not too bad, to be honest.
Yeah, not too bad. Top end for a controller, but still, it's cheaper than like Push and things like that. So
I've seen the photograph.
It's smaller than I thought it would be. But,
right.
But the hardware is really sturdy. It's like proper metal, no plastic and everything.
Yeah,
so
nice. Designed for a live kicking.
Yeah. And he said that'll be out later this summer.
All right, yeah.
Nice.
So, that's cool.
More affordable. You were talking about Drum Machine, which I haven't checked out yet, but sounds great.
Yeah, that's the Boom Chick from Create Audio, which I think is my bargain of the show, to be honest. But it's a 5-voice analog drum machine. You can use it as part of a Eurorack setup as a 40 HP module, I think, or just standalone.
Yeah.
It's got like 5 voices which span from kind of a kick, snare, hi-hat to these 2 multifunctional voices, which can do more tonal stuff and do kind of more experimentally percussive textures with some kind of, I think it's wave shaping and FM thrown in there.
Yeah.
But the kick sounds great. It's everything from kind of like really clean subby 808s through to like gnarly distorted stuff. Because I think it's a sine oscillator through a dedicated overdrive circuit, the kick. So
nice. And you said it's got individual outputs as well, right?
Yeah, individual outputs for each voice, which is quite rare even
on
for
that price. That's really good. Like,
and it's got TRS MIDI in and out, analog clock. It's like it's designed to interface with your Eurorack really. So the connectivity is great.
Nice, that's cool.
Sweet.
And what
it's
was
great
the price?
for $399.
$399. Yeah, that is really good. By the sounds of it.
And they came out with a mixer as well.
Yeah, the assembler mixer, and that's kind of a similar concept really.
Yeah.
Same as their East Beast, West Pest.
Yeah, so a similar form factor.
Yeah, exactly the same size, shape, and the same idea of you can stick it in your modular or you can just use it standalone.
Yeah, standalone. Nice. I would love to get hold of those for review.
Yeah, we need to give those a try.
Yeah.
Nice.
For sure.
So finally, I was kind of tasked with the more esoteric side of Superbooth.
There is a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, originally we were going to talk. Originally we were going to talk more about like modules and things. We are actually glossing over a lot of the modular stuff in here because there's just too much. But like I said, live blog below, we're going to cover as much as we can in that.
So, in my remit, which was a bit loose, I kind of got a bit, blinded by a lot of the cool stuff.
Yeah.
There are a few things that really did stand out. In no particular order, I do want to talk about 2 very esoteric hands-on devices. One's the Clank Uranograph.
You were saying uranophone earlier.
I keep getting it wrong. It sounds like it should be uranophone. But this thing's crazy looking. It's very Soma Lab-esque.
That's the vibe.
I've seen a picture and I've no idea what it is.
Looks like an alien artifact.
It's got that sort of vibe. It's like full-on sort of milled aluminium top, wooden bottom. It's like very premium things. It's like $2,500.
Not what you'd call intuitive to figure out, maybe.
No, well, I mean, the one we were looking at didn't have it wasn't printed. They will be printed, but it's still very small type. But you've got 2 keyboards. One is sort of the pitch side of the keyboard, which you can do this really sort of nice glissando and pitch bendy stuff between sort of multiple touch. It's very sort of hands-on. There's another one kind of at the other end. It doesn't sort of, you're kind of holding it like this. There's lots of knobs and stuff, and the other one's more of a control keyboard, which you can then sort of switch between like octaves, and you can change you can kind of program sort of 4 of these to pretty much map them to anything on this. So it's this 5-voice engine.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
It's so much going on. There's like wave folding. There's loads of effects on it, like sort of delays and coupler sort of style delays going on. It's mental. Yeah. Honestly, it looks mental. It sounds mental, and I'd love to have a go on one, like properly have some time with it.
Probably need to spend some proper time to
get.
What sort of price is that then?
So that's currently they're doing pre-orders, so it's slightly cheaper on pre-orders. The full price is $2,300.
Yeah. So it's a serious bit of kit, and it's the kind of thing you probably would buy, and you need to really invest some time into.
Yeah, but I think you're gonna love it
in that kind of Soma Labs kind of way, which is cool.
A bit like the Terra sort of thing.
Yeah.
But they're doing like pre-orders. First batch is I think 1,500.
Okay.
Second batch will be a little bit more, but
Nice.
Yeah, they'll be shipping that in a couple of months.
Nice.
So yeah, good on them. So Clank, they're an Italian brand. So again, modular in their sort of beginnings, and they're moving over to this sort of thing. And sort of opposite to that is another brand, sort of Eternal Research, which I've just come out with this
Demon box.
the demon box, that kind of like triangular, like I don't know, like a alien spaceship type obelisk thing. I'm like, what is that? So it's got like 32 sort of electromagnetic sort of points.
Inductors, I think.
Inductors, sorry, because they're essentially they can pick up any electromagnetic source.
Yeah.
So they had tiny little vibrators. They had like loads of old
Had a
gear,
drill.
like a drill.
You could put your phone on there.
Yeah,
You
like
can
a
hit a tuning
magnet,
fork and
tuning
wave
fork
it
with a
over the top.
magnet,
Nice.
like loads, anything that can generate an electromagnetic
That is
field.
prime Superbooth stuff,
Right?
isn't it? Like that is real
Right?
prime Superbooth.
Adam, our videographer, will attest to that's straight out of our university course. That was.
Yeah.
It's bonkers what you can do with this, but I think the power in it has its onboard sound engine. It can generate its own tones. But when we had our demo, they had it hooked up to like a Prophet, and they've got it controlling some like video.
It's
software.
translating the EMF into MIDI and CV, isn't
And
it?
CV as well. So
Nice,
it's
that's
kind
cool.
of like there's a lot to it. I think that's got more legs. Out of the two, the Clank and the Eternal Research one, I'm kind of veering towards more of the Eternal Research, the Demon Box, because I think it's just got a bit more crazy, wayward kind of scope.
So yeah, price on that.
Price on that is $899.
Okay.
So it's a big difference
But-
between that and the
Yeah, and it feels like you can
Clank
do a lot
one.
with that for that price. You talk about things being useful. I'll tell you something that I think looks really useful for a lot of people, and that you were really liking as well, from Polyend.
Oh, Mess.
Yeah, Mess, which actually you had more time with than me, but I had a little play with it through a guitar.
Yeah, I actually didn't play it. You played it. I was just listening when
but
we
it
did
sounds
the demo.
that's something that I think you would get a lot of use out of. So tell
So Mess
us-
is basically it's another. So they've gone deep into guitar effects, it seems. So their recent model was the Step. So it's the drum machine. It's the same chassis as the drum machine. We've got 4 tracks. These are 4 effect slots essentially. There are over 120 effects in this thing, and it's like every effect manageable. So you can chuck in up to 4 effects. You can easily switch them by just sort of holding down one and then switching over to another. You can swap the order out so quick.
Yeah.
Really sort of nice experiment in that sense. Very hands-on, very easy to sort of select between different effects. Then they've got the 60-step sequencer, which then you can kind of really like program in some sort of nice like glitchy patterns, and then you can sync it up to your step if you have one, or any other sort of.
Yeah, I mean, what I liked about it is like I said, I was playing through it, just kind of strumming a couple of chords and like turning the kind of wet control up, and you just get instant shoegaze kind of
100%.
real kind of My Bloody Valentine sort of like fuzz and fuzz, pitch stuff, like reverb, all of that in one.
It feels like it's for the Chase Bliss crowd.
Yeah.
Anyone who loves their stuff, it's like 4 of those.
Yeah, I played a
almost.
guitar. I played
You
a
know what I
guitar through it. I'm really interested to see how it works on like synths and drum machines.
Yeah,
and all
I think
that,
it's
which
going to
cool.
be very good for anyone to experiment with any kind of multi effects.
Yeah.
It's $599, which I
Good,
think for its
yeah.
massive value for money.
It's expensive for a pedal, but I think for what it does,
For the scope,
it feels
I think for
well
the scope of
priced.
what you can do, it's
Yeah.
definitely worth it. So, yeah, really pleased with that one. So yeah, finally, slightly different proposition from the other stuff. It's a bit more sort of basic, but Instruō Modular, the Glaswegian developers,
Yes.
they've kind of been working on this device for a long time, but Seashell.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, it's a standalone, semi-modular, single voice, all analog. And in itself, that isn't really kind of that exciting, but it's the kind of relationship between that, and they've developed a VST for it, or standalone software as well. So it's VST AU.
Yeah, it looked like it had a really nice, because we saw the software version, like kind of controller version. It looked like it's got a really nice, easy interface when you're using it like a DAW.
Yeah, the hardware interface itself is quite nice, and it's sort of quite experimental. There's some wave folding going on as well. All the sort of the tricks we're expecting out of like sort of mono synths, and at this price range as well. But the software really opens things up, and you've got like this matrix where you can kind of really dive in, and you can switch out like routing for all of the patch points. You can change stuff around, and it might seem like a lot of money because it's $649.
Yeah, for something so small, but it looks powerful.
I think it's really powerful, and it's going to be like a gateway for a lot of people. I think they're going to love that kind of. I'm not quite really into modular. I want to get into modular. It kind of also acts as a sound card as well because it's USB.
Is that their first non-Eurorack product?
Yes,
seems to be a bit of a theme this year.
And they're going to develop more. They're thinking this is a start, and
it looks like something that would lend itself to being like a range.
Yeah, and I'm again really excited to get that in and have a real good play with it. And
So that's our favourite things. And before we wrap up, there's a few quick honourable mentions because there's been so much stuff. So a couple of things from me very, very quickly. We've been talking a lot about new products, but there's some really cool stuff that I love that's been updated and quite interesting. One thing, again, Polyend Synth, which I really liked last year. They've just added a new synth engine with that, which is like two kind of sample oscillators in one engine. Like the press release description described it as trying to sound like Andy Stott, which is always like, I'm sold on that. I really like that. Ableton Move from last year, they've updated that, so it's kind of the most significant one they've had since launch. It's added sample slicing, which is one of the big things that like, a lot of people said was missing. So sample slicing, better MIDI in and out. That's a really nice update. Again, both those are free for users. I also very quickly want to mention Groove Synthesis. Synthesis, their third wave. That was one of our favourite synths of the last few years. They've just dropped something called the 8M, which third wave 8M. Basically what that is, because the third wave is like 4-layer multi-timbral, I think 16 or 24 polyphony, like massive. It sounds really big. 8M is basically smaller, cheaper. It's 8 voice. Yeah, it's 8 voice, only 2 layers, but it still sounds massive, and that's a ton of stuff. It's still got those kind of PPG influenced wavetable sounds,
loads of
sample things. They've changed the interface a bit actually, so there's like fewer controls but a bigger screen. I actually quite like it.
It's much better because there's no like sort of page jumping like the main one, the big one does.
So that's cool. So that deserves an honorable mention. Anything for you guys?
How much cheaper is that than the
it's still, I think it's just under $2,000. So it's not a cheap synth, but compared to the third wave, it's a lot more accessible, I think. So that's a kind of a good price. Any honorable mentions from you guys?
Battle Instruments came out with something pretty cool this year.
Yes.
It's the Castle 2 Wave Bard, which is in this kind of a series, this Castle
thing. There's Castle, those mini kind of Castle.
Like really tiny, cute little. Well, they describe it
kind
as
of
a sample
micro patch
player,
point things.
But I think that kind of undersells it because as much as it can't directly sample, you can load samples into it, load kind of preset patterns through this kind of browser-based interface, and then it's super patchable. So you take these tiny little patch cables and you can almost route any parameter to any other parameter.
We should mention. Yamaha.
Oh yeah, they've got some.
They have so it's their 50th anniversary, right? And we weren't expecting anything in particular, but they had rocked up with an updated version of. Do you remember the Reface robot? They did.
Not an actual product, but a cool thing that they've made.
I just love seeing it in action. So there's an updated version of that which can do way more stuff than it did before. It's a bit sort of more compact. And, better design. And also this huge synth that we kind of don't really know much about. And
Did you speak to anyone about that?
no, I
get a
didn't
chance
speak to anyone about it.
Look cool though.
It looked like
It looked cool.
like
You
a
can't
huge
buy it.
old modular. That
I think it was
isn't
two of them.
modular.
It was like the PG FMX,
Yeah,
the PG ANX.
it's basically seems to be paying tribute to those sound engines that have been around for quite a while.
yeah, AN and the FM are they're big, you know.
I couldn't work out whether they were controllers for it going on in like one of the synths or whether they was running themselves. We'll never know. It doesn't matter. You can't buy it.
Like we said, the modular stuff we haven't had a chance to really, you know, do any sort of big demos with it. 'Cause
If you have to
there's so
name
much.
one module, if you have to name one module for the thing.
Okay, I'm gonna name 2 modular companies.
Okay.
So Make Noise, they announced Jumbler just before the show, but then rocked up with Polymath, so it's a big deal for them.
Yeah, because people
Maths.
love maths.
Yeah,
Like,
so
quite
that's
rightly.
an updated version of that, a lot bigger, doing way more.
Yeah.
And then IntelliGel, again, they dropped
Is it multi-grain?
multigrain a few weeks back.
Yeah.
Is it a cereal thing?
No, it's not. No, it's it is as it sounds, granular. No, it's basically they've come with tons of new modules. They've got this new Jelly Mix sort of standalone mixer, performance mixer as well. So lots of stuff, big stuff from them. And there were so many other brands. Like we can't go into it all. It's
we
just
could
insane.
keep going on about this for like
I
another
know.
hour, and we're not going to.
No,
We've got
unfortunately,
to get a flight home.
Yeah,
we don't
we've-
want to miss our plane.
we've got to wrap up. So make sure you check out in the description links to our live blog where you're going to find all this other stuff, all the funky, weird stuff. That we
Also,
haven't
let
been
us
able to
know
mention.
anything you think we've missed, anything you think is really cool, anything you want to get your hands on, any thoughts on things you've seen.
Yeah, stuff you want us to review, we'll try and
Yeah.
get it and review it.
Yep.
Yeah, and hit the like and subscribe buttons as well. And well, until the next Super Booth, we're going to sign off, and yeah, we'll see you next year. So cheers.
Nice one.
Adios.
Bye.